All right, welcome to the Going Ballistic podcast. My name is Ryan Kleckner. I'm here with my cousin Jason. Go and say hi, Jason.
Hello, everybody.
We are, again, overdue. I can apologize again, but I apologized last time and I didn't fix anything. I still took way too long to get another podcast out. I apologize, everybody. But it just, life happens and gets in the way. We're going to try and be better. It actually took Jason this time shaming me into making me sit down and get this podcast going, so I'm glad Jason did that. We actually were getting a little ahead of ourselves with Jason's AR-15 build with some of the topics, so maybe I can pretend like it was some excuse that we wanted Jason to catch up on the AR, but now he's actually ahead of us, so the AR-15 that Jason is building is looking awesome, and it's almost done. So last time we left off on the build with your upper. This time we're going to talk about, the barrel and handguards and things like that. For those of you that are just tuning in and unfamiliar with this podcast, you can find information about this podcast at its website, goingballisticpodcast.com. And you can just add a / and the show's number to find out information about this show. So for example, this is our 12th show. So if you go to goingballisticpodcast.com /12, as in the number 12, you'll find any links we talk about or any pictures that we're talking about for this podcast. And we really appreciate any feedback you can give about the podcast, because the whole idea of doing this is giving out this free information is to do a few things. One, it's to give Jason and I a chance to talk about guns and build fun projects. But it's also a chance for us to share our knowledge with you guys with firearms or hunting or the outdoors. You get some free knowledge, but it's also to promote some of the other projects we're doing, like my book, the Long Range Shooting Handbook. If you haven't picked it up yet, please at least check it out on Amazon and read some of the reviews and see if it's something you want to buy. I hit a big milestone on that book, which I'm very proud of, and I'm not even ashamed to brag about. I've hit 8,000 copies so far, so now we've officially sold a little over 8,000 copies of that book. That's raised thousands for charity, because 25% of the proceeds of that book go to two military charities, the Special Operations Warrior Foundation and the Sua Sponte Foundation. So, again, you guys blow me away. You're awesome. I appreciate it. I've got to get writing on that next book, because I get an email probably once a week asking me when the next book's going to come out, and I've been treating that next book like I've been treating these podcasts. I haven't been doing them. So I've got to get going on it. It won't make the December 1st deadline I set for myself. Probably not even close. I apologize, everybody, but I'll do my best. Maybe I should do, Jason, is I should just put up pre-orders, because that's what motivated me for this book, because I put up some pre-orders thinking I'd be done soon, and orders started coming in, and I realized I had a bunch more work to do. And it made me panicked because people are actually spending money, so I figured I had to get it done. So it was kind of painting myself in a corner worked on that one. So that's what you guys know about the podcast. Find extra information. And we're finishing up Jason's AR-15 build project. This particular AR-15, he wanted to make the most accurate AR-15 he could make. And I mention that because I get asked all the time from people that want to get into guns, what kind of gun should I get? Or what's the best gun? Well, that's impossible, and as I think I've shared before, it's like asking somebody, Jason, what's the best car to get? I mean, you want to haul lumber? It's a pickup truck. You want to get good gas mileage? It's a Prius. It depends on your purpose. So, for Jason's purpose, it was to build a ultimate precision AR-15, and I think that's what we got going. Do you agree, Jason? You're excited about the components?
Oh, I'm so excited about it. I cannot wait to shoot it. Not only is it going to be my introduction into precision shooting, it's also going to get me to where I want to be varmint hunting, which I've always wanted to get into and have never done.
Well, and you mentioned something earlier to me. It's actually easy, right? I mean, when you first called me, we were talking about AR-15s. Jason had a Bushmaster rifle that he got through a good deal and was happy with it. And I had mentioned to him a nicer rifle that he should check out. And I think Jason's first response was, well, why do you need a nicer rifle? I have this rifle right here. I responded, oh, no. It's so different. You're not even going to like the lower quality rifle anymore. And I was right. Go ahead.
Oh, 100% you were right. But at the time, I'm like, man, he just likes spending my money.
That's true too.
But yes, as soon as I shot the better rifle, I sold the Bushmaster.
Yeah,
It was that drastic.
Yeah. Now, if you have a Bushmaster, that's great. I mean, it's not a bad rifle. It's just like my point before for cars. It's not a bad car. Just some are nicer than others if you're looking at certain features. But if that's what's in your budget, then don't be ashamed of it. Enjoy it. We're just talking, comparing the two. Obviously, we're going to like the nicer one. So he did that, and I forgot what the topic was, but he reminded me today, actually, on a phone call, about how I must have made a comment of, well, just tear it apart, or just rebuild it, or fix it. And to someone that's not used to diving into firearms like that, especially AR-15s, that's similar to me saying, oh, your engine's not running right, huh? Well, just tear it apart. Just go into the garage and take your engine apart. That's a pretty big project for most people. But Jason, I guess I said something like it was easy, it was just plug and play. What did we say about it?
Basically, you said it is Legos for big boys. And I laughed, and I thought, well, that's easy to say. I've never tore one apart. But you were right. After I've dove into it and got the tools that we had talked about for it, there really is not that much to it at all.
Yeah, there's no reason not to do it if you can afford some of the basic tools to get going there. That's great. I'm glad it worked out. So now Jason has figured out how easy they are to build. You kind of got the bug now, don't you?
Oh, bad. And we've discussed some other options already for down the road.
So I kind of want to tease that right now because I'm open to listeners giving us some ideas. And as you know, you got me so excited. I had to call you again about it today just because I want to get going on this. So we kind of came up with the idea, which ties into what I was saying about the purposes for the guns can be different. So there's no best trigger. If you're going for the cheapest AR-15, then you're going to want one trigger. And if you want the most accurate or nicest AR-15, you're going to want another trigger. Both are best for their suited purposes. Well, as we're talking about what to do next, the idea came up of a fun challenge of how could we do the cheapest AR-15. So I've already built the lightest one I can get that's reasonably priced. And that's going to be what I'm going to be offering as one of the models of rifles I'm going to be selling. And we're building the most accurate one now with Jason's. But what about just the, for lack of a better term, the Red Dawn Wolverines, scrounge together the best you can and make it work AR-15. And we both like the idea. I think I like it a little bit more. I'm so excited about it. And we started coming up with rules. And so I'm hoping that you guys can help us figure out what kind of rules we can have for the contest. Because Jason and I are going to compete and see who can build the cheapest functioning AR-15 from sourced components. And we're putting some standards in place, like how many rounds it has to shoot without malfunctioning or some basic level of accuracy. So, we can't just make a paper mache AR-15. It's actually got to work. But as part of the contest, not only will you guys be able to follow along what components we got, but I thought it might be a good idea that I would just give mine away. So I will figure out a way to make it a contest that costs you all nothing. It's either going to be, writing a review for my book, or it's going to be liking the Facebook page. It's going to be something that doesn't require any money from you. And I'll just hold a contest. And when we're done, one of you guys can just win the AR-15 from me free and clear. So I figured if you're not going to follow along and listen to learn, maybe you'll follow along and listen so you can get a free gun out of it. So I think it'll be fun. So already we're thinking, we had to come up with the rules on what parts you had to buy, because you could just go to, Palmetto State Armory, or you could just go to Anderson Manufacturing and buy completed uppers and lowers and just snap the thing together cheaper than you can actually buy the components. So if we went just purely on cost, Jason and I would end up with the exact same rifle because that's the cheapest way to go.
Right.
So how do we divide it up, Jason?
So we decided that it had to be a stripped lower, and the upper basically had to be stripped enough that it did not have a barrel or a handrail.
Right, it has to come that way, right? You can't tear it down. So who
Correct.
cares what other components we buy together? Like, so if a buttstock assembly for some reason is assembled, great. Or if a drop-in trigger is assembled, who cares? But the lower must be sourced as a stripped lower, and the upper doesn't have to be stripped, We don't mind if it comes with like an ejection port cover on it, but it can't have a barrel in it. And then everything else is kind of free for all, right?
Yeah, so like on the upper, we were talking, like you said, the ejection plate cover can come with it. The forward assist is another simple thing if it came with it.
Right. Or no forward assist at all, because we also agreed that if there are functions or parts missing on purpose, then it's okay.
Then it's okay, correct. Just like the one I'm building now has no forward assist, and I had it made that way.
Well, there you go. Yeah, so for some of the rules as we're figuring it out here so we don't cheat, for those of you that don't know me, which is most of you, there's a Ranger motto that I love and try to live by, which is, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And if you get caught cheating, you're not trying hard enough. When that's explained to not sound like I'm just a cheater all the time, it actually makes a lot of sense, but it's fun to get a rise out of people sometimes. I actually, when I was teaching a rock climbing merit badge class for some Boy Scouts, I just volunteered to teach that class every once in a while back when I was living in Phoenix. I had said that to the Boy Scouts one time, and just all the parents in the back just panicked with these big wide eyes like they were aghast. They couldn't believe that I would condone cheating. So I had to explain myself. But in this case, yeah, if it doesn't come with a forward assist, then you don't need one. Or if your barrel's threaded, you have to have something on the threads. But if you get a barrel that's not threaded, then you don't need a muzzle device, right?
Right. And the big thing that we would like to do, in case anybody wants to play along, is it has to be readily available. So. Oh,
that's right. Yeah, I can't call some industry contact and be like, hey guys, hook me up on this part for cheapness.
Correct.
It's got to be something that you guys as listeners could buy. Now, it might be on sale, so you might have to buy it quickly. But
correct.
It's got to be something that we can buy without any special connections. And we actually aren't going to do the cheapest we can do, because the cheapest we can do, honestly, I sound like I'm doing commercials for Palmetto State here, but you could just go to their website, go to each part and sort by price and pick the cheapest one, and they're going to be cheaper than just about everybody out there. And the reason we don't want to do that is we want to have a competition. If we did that, then Jason and I would both have the exact same gun for the exact same price. So right. We're going to actually spend a little more just to handicap ourselves for the competition. So we're going to put a limit. I don't know. We were joking around it maybe being $200. Maybe it'll be more. I don't know. But you can't spend more than a certain amount of money at each particular vendor. So we will correct. Cap what we could buy from Palmetto State Armory. And then that'll be some of the strategy on maybe I'd rather buy the lower from there when Jason maybe would rather buy the barrel from there, and so on and so forth. So again, our target price might be higher than it would actually cost you to make. But we're doing it for the sake of competition. We'll show some pictures. And what was our function test? I suggested, by the way, everything we're saying here, guys, are suggestions. If you guys have better ideas, chime in, please. We're open to this.
So we were saying basically 6 minutes at 50 yards.
Just 6 minutes. Yeah. 6 minutes regardless of distance, but we would test it at 50, right? Yep.
Right. And we were going to try to make sure that it had to complete 60 rounds.
Yep, so 2 full magazines and no malfunctions, and the bolt has to lock to the rear at the end of each magazine.
And I think to make it even more fun, it has to be full metal jacket rounds, which aren't as accurate, but are cheap plinking rounds.
Yeah, they are. My concern is 6 minutes might be hard, dude. Like, I mean, there's mil-spec ARs that have a hard time holding 6 minutes.
Well,
we might have to go to 10 minutes.
Yards.
Well, yeah, but 6 minutes is 6 minutes. So I'm thinking maybe 10 minutes, because a 10-inch, circle at 100 yards is still, the kill zone on an animal. We'll have to think about that one. But yeah, there are some high-quality ARs that would struggle to get 6 minutes, regardless of the distance. They should, but some of them don't. So we'll have to debate that one. And if we don't, we can leave it there. And if one of us fails, then the other one loses. But if we both fail, we're going to have to get the standard higher. So at least, Jason, think about 10 minutes for me.
Okay.
At 50 yards, a 5-inch group, just stay within there. Because we're not trying to go for accuracy, right? Like, I want to buy the cheapest barrel possible. I don't want to buy the cheapest one and have to worry about accuracy. But I also don't want to make a barrel, like I said, out of paper mache,
Right. Well, I look at it this way. I mean, the Bushmasters that the kids have can easily do 5 inches at 50 yards.
Yeah, those are actually decent barrels, though. So we'll see. All right, as we go for the build, I'm expecting a Pakistani pop metal barrel on my AR-15. I'm actually hoping
Right.
it looks horrible, so it like makes a better
Well,
story. Not that I'm sorry for whoever wins it. They're gonna get a weird looking gun, but this is gonna be a Franken gun. And we even talked about like making the parts. So we thought, now you're bringing up the sourcing for the listeners, Jason. Maybe that's why we
right.
don't make any parts.
Right. And that's kind of the purpose too, because if they do want to build it or they like the results or however it came out, you don't want any one-off eBay thing. You want something that they could literally look up online and, oh, there's the part, I can buy it.
Right. Yeah, and it
Which
helps us from
is
cheating too, because I told Jason I just use a paper towel roll for my handguard
that's right.
to get the cheapest thing possible. But no, we got to make it something that you got to buy to put on there. So all right, this is gonna be fun. They might not be pretty, but yeah. Jason already gave me a clue on what he's going to use for an optic. I was going to use iron sights, but he kind of gave away a secret and told me about a cheap red dot, so I gotta go to find that. So from now on, we got to not give each other any hints on what the build is going to be. So we'll set up a timeline, guys, and we'll build these guns up. Like I said, you guys can follow along, see who can do it cheaper, see what the results were, and then I'm going to put mine up as a giveaway for someone who's listening to the podcast to win. So that'll be fun. Now, speaking of giveaways and winning things, if you haven't checked out Facebook in a while, if you're not on Facebook, you need to get on there for some of these giveaways. Sierra Bullets has been doing a series of giveaways for the past 3 or 4 days. They're going to do it for, I think, 10 days total. And they're giving away a lot of stuff. So far, each day, they've given away a copy of my book, a copy of a reloading book, some reloading components, like some sizing wax, things like that. But also 1,000 Sierra bullets of your choice. So whichever bullets you want from them, they'll send you. It's kind of a cool giveaway.
Nice.
Yeah, that can add up quickly. And all they're doing is having you have to respond on Facebook. So one day said, what's your favorite shooting book? One day was, what's your favorite caliber? And whoever responds, they give it away, and it's been really nice. So, and they've been very supportive of the book lately, too. They actually, just out of the blue, they called me and asked me to be part of the contest, which made my day. But then they made a nice post recommending the book to people. So I screenshotted that and essentially said, well, it's not going to get better than this when Sierra Bullets is recommending the book. So I really appreciate it, guys. I also shared one of their pictures they have from their test lab that you guys should check out. I'll put it up on this podcast page. They had a 500 round group from 300 yards they took a picture of. So you hear people argue quite often on whether a 3 or a 5 or a 10 round group is a true test of accuracy. Because a 3 round group is pretty easy to get a good group. You can have a few bad ones, but then all of a sudden you come across a good 3 shots in a row, and it's nice to take a picture of that group and call it great. Well, a lot of people argue that they're useless because it's too easy to get 3 accidentally good ones in a row, that you should always do a 5 round group, because that's the true test. And if there's going to be a flyer, you're going to see it in the 5 rounds. Well, some people take it even further and say 10 round groups. You shoot a 10 round group for measurement or nothing. So there's all this debate going back and forth, and I just love that Sierra showed up and said, 3, 5, 10, that's cute. How about 500? This group is 2.8 inches. It is a ragged 2.8 inch hole from 300 yards, 500 shots in a row under a minute of angle. That's amazing. That is just the coolest, neat picture. So you should check that out. It's pretty cool. And they definitely threw down the gauntlet when people come to comparing, group size or things like that. Let's see, what else has happened since we did our last podcast before we get into your project, Jason? Oh, I had something. I got called out for having stolen valor. That's the first time for me, so I was kind of excited about that. Somebody on one of my YouTube videos left a comment, I'm going to have to call stolen valor on this guy. And so I responded, call away. And that was it. I actually got tickled because maybe I've been accused before, but it's the first time I knew of it. So I took a picture of it and showed everybody and said, congratulations to me, first time it happened. So that was kind of funny. So that's going on. I posted a picture of some 300 blackout loads I've been working on. You guys can check that out. I figured out how to make some 220 grain round nose bullets work in my 300 blackout, and they're awesome. I mean, I'm a big 300 blackout fan anyway, So the cartridge essentially in the subsonic flavor is equivalent to a 45 pistol, and the supersonic flavor is essentially equivalent to a 30-30 or an AK-47. So you can get both of these spectrums of power and noise if you're using a silencer, because the subsonic is dead quiet, in the same gun with no changing anything. You just change the magazine and it runs the other flavor of ammo just fine. But the problem with the subsonics is, yeah, it's the same as a 45, but you're shooting a Spitzer bullet. You're shooting a pointed full metal jacket bullet that doesn't expand. So it just kind of useless. It doesn't do a whole lot. It's a nice slow bullet, but it's also pointy, so it just kind of pokes a hole. So I've been trying to figure out how to get these Hornady round nose soft point bullets, which they just hit like a fist. They're awesome. But to get them, not only to get a reliable load, but to get them to feed. And I actually have these round nose bullets feeding out of a semi-auto, which is cool. And I'm seating them down low enough in the brass that it's making it work, but also the charge is working. I hesitate listing the actual charge because I don't want anyone to try and repeat it and maybe hurt themselves. But if you're really curious, I don't mind letting you know. Just write in and ask me. But the trick I had to learn here for those of you that are trying to reload these is my die in the press couldn't support the brass enough when the seating adjustment was low enough to get the bullet to the right depth. So if the seating adjustment's so low, and I tried to seat the bullet, as it would go up into the die, the collar that normally supports a little bit of the brass around the neck wasn't able to come down low enough, and it was just accordion crinkling my brass. And no matter how much I chamfered the brass to help the bullet get in, it just wouldn't work. So I figured out that if I pulled the bullet seating adjustment way out to where the bullet was barely seated, like 1/8 of an inch, then it allowed the whole cartridge to get up into the die enough that collar supported the neck, and it started the bullet just fine. Perfect every time. And then I just took all the cartridges and pushed them back through the press again with the seating adjustment lowered again to get it back to so I kind of had to seat the bullets twice to get this to work. But holy cow, it is such a quiet, hits like a hammer round. I'm really happy with them. And it's also the first time I had a problem with my coax reloader. So I think I've talked on here, you guys, about a Dillon 550, how it's a good, introductory level all-around reloader because you can do progressive loading and single stage on it, which we'll cover in a future podcast. But the coax is my single stage press. That's my really fancy, really cool single stage press. We'll get into it later. We get into reloading, but because of the size of these bullets and the way the dies needed to be, it wouldn't work at all. So again, I'll save that for a future time, but it was an interesting note. I brought this up because at least 2 people asked me to share about the loads because they're pretty cool. And Jason, maybe we'll get some video of it and show you. Just these little quiet sledgehammers are pretty fun to shoot. So you haven't switched over to 300 Blackout at all for anything yet, have you, Jason?
No, I've actually got to shoot one. I was out on a hunt, and a guy was out target shooting and had one, and we were talking, and he asked if I wanted to shoot it. And I said, of course, absolutely. So no, it's a neat round.
Yeah, it's cool. It's got some limitations. I mean, I like to tell people it's the American AK. It's kind of what it is. It's like an AK round and an AR-15. But if you have a silencer, especially a 30 caliber silencer, it's just the way to go. It's not only quiet, but it cycles the gun just fine. So it's kind of cool. All right, well, I'm ready to get up to your project now. Are you ready to talk about your AR-15 project?
Oh, I'm always ready to talk about my AR-15 project.
All right, so we finished with the upper receiver last time. What are we going to cover this time, Jason?
So this time, I'd like to cover, and like you said, we're ahead a little bit, at least I am, but the barrel, gas block, and handrail.
Okay, so we'll do the barrel, the gas block, the gas tube, and the handguard.
Yes.
Sound good? All right, so what barrel did you go? Did we already tell people what the barrel you went with?
Yes, we went with the JP.
Oh, that thing just looks awesome, doesn't it?
It's beautiful. And I have mine not fully polished, but just a step above.
Yeah, so yours is the way to go. Yeah, yours is the slightly polished barrel. So I finally had to get set up as a dealer with JP because they're the first choice I have for barrels on the guns I'm going to be building. Cryogenically frozen, hand-led, lapped. I mean, these barrels, I think they're the best you can get for precision. So the considerations you guys have with the barrels is one of the first things you need to figure out, of course, is your caliber, because the barrel dictates your caliber, but also your length. And after you get your caliber and length figured out, then you need to decide what you're going to use it for so you can get the right twist rate. As I think we talked about before, for AR-15s, a 1 in 9 twist is very common on budget ARs because it's good for 55 grain, bulk bullets. But it's typically not a fast enough twist rate to stabilize the heavier bullets that you're going to want for shooting match grade accurate bullets. So you want a faster twist rate, like a 1 in 8 or a 1 in 7. Now, for those of you that don't know twist rates, notice those numbers got smaller. I said 1 in 9 was slow, but 1 in 7 was fast. Well, that's because the number means how many inches it takes for one revolution. So 1 in 9 twist barrel means 1 revolution in 9 inches. And a 1 in 7 barrel means 1 revolution in 7 inches. So if you can get 1 entire revolution faster or in a shorter distance, that means it's spinning faster. So 1 in 7 is faster than 1 in 9. Now 1 in 7 is great for 75, 77 grain heavy match grade bullets, which are really nice for trying to shoot long distance. Those heavier bullets, handle the wind and just track better. But the 1 in 8 is kind of a sweet spot when it comes to ARs. The 1 in 8 shoots the 55 grains typically just fine, and it also handles the heavy bullets just fine. So it's a nice happy medium. But I've seen, without explanation, 1 in 9 twist barrels shoot heavy bullets great. It's just not the norm. It normally doesn't happen that way. So the other thing we need to talk about is barrel length, right? So for it to be a rifle, legally a rifle, and not be a short-barreled rifle and subject to NFA controls and tax stamps and things like that, the barrel in a rifle needs to be at least 16 inches in length. Well, the M4 I had in the military was 14 and a half inches in length, my standard M4. And they kind of call that the carbine length, rifle barrel. And that has typically what they call a carbine length gas system. And that refers to how far away the gas hole is in the barrel that redirects the gas, through the system. Well, since the civilian versions need to have 16 inches or longer, that longer barrel with the same carbine length gas system can actually give you too much gas, or it can be not too much, but more of an abrupt, too forceful of a gas charge. Because what happens is the bullet passes by the gas hole. I gotta be careful saying that word. The gas is allowed to be redirected and get up through the hole, go back through the gas tube, and push back on the bolt. Well, if the barrel is really long after that gas hole in the barrel, then it's going to be a longer amount of time, and perhaps more pressure can actually make it through that hole. If the bullet was gone after a 14.5-inch barrel, and the rest of the pressure was able to go out into the atmosphere, you don't get too much. But now you change that 14.5 to 16 inches, or 17, or a little bit more, that extra 1.5 2 inches of barrel, it's just that much more pressure that can go back. So most ARs are overgassed anyway, meaning there's too much gas. And the point is, as the gun slowly gets dirtier and dirtier and dirtier, and it's harder for the bolt to move, you need more gas to keep it reliable. So you put too much gas up front, so there's just enough gas later when it's dirty. Well, you also have a problem of the impulse, of how sharp the spike is. And the closer that gas hole is to the chamber, the more of that pressure spike you can get of how the powder is burning. So ideally, you want that hole as far away from the chamber as possible and still make it reliable. So on 16-inch barrels, you can get away with what's called a mid-length gas system. And you'll understand the mid in just a second. But it is a little bit longer than a carbine-length gas system to give you less of a sharp impulse on your system. And you need to know which system you have, because the gas tubes are going to be different lengths, right? So you got to make a choice here. Well, a rifle-length barrel, which I consider 18 inches or longer, can use what's called a rifle-length gas system. That's the original gas system designed for the M16. And it's the furthest away. And so the nice part about that is you can get some, it's a nicer, softer impulse. You can get some more reliability, softer shooting gun with a rifle-length gas system. But you need to have at least an 18-inch barrel to make it work, or else the bullet's not going to be in the barrel long enough after the hole to get enough pressure. So, Jason, you have an 18-inch barrel and you went with the rifle length gas system, correct?
That's correct.
All right, I think that's going to be the nicest, smoothest shooting gun you can get. I mean, technically, you could have a carbine length gas system on your rifle length barrel, but that's just going to be a very abrupt and not soft shooting rifle. So, pick your caliber, pick your barrel length, and your twist rate. Now, the reason we went 18 inches is not because a longer barrel is more accurate. In fact, the opposite's true. So let that sink in when all you guys are going to call me a blasphemer. But believe it or not, shorter barrels can actually be more accurate than longer barrels. So a longer barrel, I mean, besides getting you closer to the target, if your barrel is really, really long, all it does is give you more velocity to a point, right? You put a 20-foot barrel on an AR-15, you're going to get less velocity because, the bullet's going to slow down by the time it gets out. But a longer barrel just allows the bullet to be exposed to the pressure from the gases longer and build up more pressure and therefore more speed and leave the barrel faster. So that's nice for you shooting long range because you want to get that bullet as fast as possible so it doesn't slow down so much over distance. I mean, it's going to slow down the same rate, but it's going to be faster, let's say, at 800 yards than a shorter barrel would be at 800 yards. And so that's the idea. Now, you can get just as accurate of a 16-inch barrel or even less because accuracy is about consistency, and consistency is about doing the exact same thing, right? That's what it means. So a shorter barrel is going to whip and flex and move less than a longer barrel. And I tell people to think about taking a stick of a certain diameter. You flex the stick and you can break it. Well, if you take that same stick and give a smaller piece of it, it's a lot harder to break. A shorter piece says it's relatively stiffer, still the same diameter. Well, the same thing happens with rifle barrels. So don't think we did 18 inches on Jason's gun because 18 is more accurate somehow. But the 18 is going to give him a rifle length system, which is going to make it for a smoother shooting gun. The 18 inches is going to give him as much velocity as he can reasonably get without turning into this huge, unwieldy gun. So he's going to be able to stay faster at different distances for wind and things like that for shooting long range. And that Mark 12 SPR that I had in the military that I wish I didn't have to give back, that had an 18-inch barrel for all these reasons. So I think you made the right choice. Do you think it's the right size barrel, Jason?
I do, and it was also a change from my AAC. I believe the AAC has a 16-inch barrel on it.
Correct.
And it shoots fine. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had no issues with it. But it's nice to also have something that's a little bit different in comparison to what I already have.
Yeah, so you can justify spending the money on it, right?
That's
not
right.
The same thing, yeah. I think you'll like it. You'll notice it's a little softer shooting, that longer barrel. So, now, the hole that's already going to be pre-drilled there for the gas to come through, it needs to go up and go into a gas block or a gas regulator. Essentially, on a standard AR-15, it's the front sight post. That whole front sight assembly is actually where the gas comes up out of the barrel, gets redirected 90 degrees towards the back, and then goes into a gas tube. And you can have front sight blocks that actually have that front sight on there as the gas regulator, or now more modern is these lower profile units that operate as the gas regulators or the gas block, but they don't also act as a front sight. They're either hidden underneath handguards or down low enough that a scope can see over them. I really like a certain low profile model that I'll be using on my rifles because it's just very unobtrusive and minuscule. But Jason went with a really good option here. He went with the JP gas regulator just kind of to match the barrel so you could tune your gas, right?
Yeah, and the other Parallax one was unavailable. So it kind of left me with
there
no
you
options.
go, yeah.
Like, I called them. They said they had no idea when they'd have any available. So yeah, we went with, of course, one that's going to match the barrel, and ultimately the best choice I could do.
Now that one goes on with kind of a clamshell design. So there's 3 styles I can think of off the top of my head. You can have ones that clamp on like Jason's is going to, which the entire device is kind of like a C shape, and as it slides over the barrel, there are bolts at the bottom. As you tighten those bolts, it clamps the C together. So it's almost like it's a fist getting a tighter grip on the barrel is how it mounts. That's one design. Their other design is where there's a set screw or screws that actually go through the gas block and then poke into the bottom of the barrel. So the tighter you tighten it, the more it pulls the gas block down against the top of the barrel. Now, psychologically, it seems like the first clamp style would be the best, tightest, and maybe it is, but that's not my experience or in practice. I actually like the second style where the set screws have to push against the barrel. Now, you might think that's a bad design because, the set screw could back out and it might not hold it very tight. But I like it because I'm able to, not only are they smaller, but I'm able to, when I get the gas block on, to mark where the set screw is going to be touching the barrel. And you can actually dimple the barrel. You can take a drill and just put two little tiny, as many dimples as you need for how many screws there are. So that when you tighten the screw in, the point of the screw goes into that dimple. And it helps not only the screws keep the gas block on tight, but it makes sure that it doesn't slide forward at all. I really like that technique to do. But Jason, you got the clamp-on style, right?
Yes, I got the clamp-on style.
Which will work great. It's going to be a great system. Yep.
Oh, and it should be a perfect fit. It's from JP. I have a JP barrel. So there should be no real issues at all.
Right. And then the third style is what you put on like a mil-spec AR, which is a gas block that it's kind of fit to the barrel. They'll actually have a few different sizes, and they'll try on each one to see which one mates to a certain barrel first. And then there's pins that are pressed into place, and that presses on the gas block. And if you have one of those, like from a Colt AR or something, just don't touch it if you can help it, because that factory seal is so great. You'll never get it to seal as good as you can as a factory pressed on, gas block is. You're like a mil-spec purpose. I would not want to build a mil-spec rifle with a set screw gas block. It's too easy for it to come loose. And if it comes loose or leaks at all, the entire gun stops working. So that's not a good thing. So those are the three types I can think of here. Now, the gas block you got has a regulator on it. So I mentioned before that most AR-15s are over-gassed, right? Because you need enough gas to run the gun. Well, if you want the gun to be softer, so some of the recoil you feel on an AR-15, which already is really light recoil, isn't really the recoil from the bullet. It's the slamming of the bolt carrier into the back of the gun that you're feeling in your shoulder. So what you can do is you can turn these set screws on these gas blocks down, which restrict the flow of the gases. And you can turn the gas system down so much you can actually turn it off. You can make it there's not enough gas to even run the gun. It makes the gun incredibly soft shooting to get the gas system tuned just right. But there's a little bit of science and a little bit of art to tuning a gas system. So the way I do it is I put it on whatever setting I want. I can start high or low, but I put a magazine with one round in it in the gun, and I fire the round. And if you start at the high end, you keep turning it down and trying that until the bolt no longer locks back on its own. That's why you do one round. Because you'll actually tune a gas system to where it'll feed other rounds just fine, but it's not enough to lock, not enough to lock the bolt to the rear. So I always like to just do one round at a time, make an adjustment, put the next one in, try it again, see if the bolt locks to the rear. And you keep going down until it's not enough to lock the bolt to the rear. Now at that point, this is where the art comes in. Yeah, you can come back, one full turn. Well, one full turn is going to be completely different adjustments depending on which company's gas block you have. You might want to go back a couple settings that you tried. If this is going to be more of a gun that you would need to protect yours or somebody else's life, you might want it to be really open to err on the side of caution. But if it's for 3-gun competitions or just for plinking, maybe you restrict it a bunch, get it tuned right to the limit, so it's just really fun to shoot. And who cares if it starts malfunctioning? You can just clean it up later. Now, cleaning up is a point too. Don't go crazy and lube the gun up all perfectly. I'm not saying shoot it dry and break anything, but don't go overboard on really nice, lube in the AR-15 because the gun's working great, and then set your gas system that way. Because what's going to happen is you're going to try and shoot the gun again when it's either dirty or a little bit drier, and it's not going to work. So try and mimic the kind of worst possible scenario that you'd just be normally shooting the gun when you're setting the gas system. So does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, so that's how you do it. Be safe, too. When you guys are doing that, it's real easy to put your hand in front of the muzzle if you're not careful and you're at the range. You're repeatedly making adjustments, and doing one at a time. It's also why I like doing one at a time. So you're not tempted to reach up and start adjusting it while there's a live round chambered. in front of the gun. So now the gas tube goes in the gas block, and make sure you're getting the right length of gas tube. A carbine length tube is not going to reach far enough back on a rifle length receiver. Which tube did you go with, Jason?
It was just a standard one from Brownells.
You got a black one though, right?
Yep, it is
I
black.
think it's going to look kind of cool. I don't know if I've ever seen one. Most of them are always silver for some reason.
Right. It'll kind of blend in with the handrail that I have.
Yeah, it'll look cool.
The one thing I did want to discuss with you, though, is the actual, when mounting the gas block, you had suggested just blowing air through it.
The gas block.
Online.
Go ahead. Yeah, talk about that.
So I actually looked online, and they talked about flipping it upside down, finding the center of the hole, then marking the outer edge of the gas block, and then doing the same thing on the barrel. If I take a straight edge, mark the center of that hole, and mark it up to where you can match the two lines together.
That's what Jason's talking about, everybody, is the hole in the gas block and the hole in the barrel need to line up. If you have them completely misaligned, the gun won't work at all. So you want to line them up properly, and it's hard to do sometimes. So if you took a straight edge or something and you took a pencil and you extended the line out where the hole was in the gas block and then brought that line up the side and did the same thing on the barrel, I think it's a great idea. I've never heard of that or even thought of it. It's a good thinking. Then you could just line the two lines up and you're good to go. That's what you're going to do, right, Jason?
Yes, I'm going to give that a try. And then one thing I do want to point out that I have learned in this process is do not put the gas block on before the barrel nut.
That's true. Also, when people want to change things, they want to change barrels or they want to change handguards, and they don't want to take the gas block off. And it's like, well, you're probably going to have to, because the way the barrel nut works. That's funny. Yeah, another way you guys can line up the holes is, one, the gas block I like to use. If you don't install the gas tube yet, there's actually a hole through the top, and you can just look straight down and line up the hole. That's like the simplest design I've ever seen. But another method you can do is you just put your mouth on one end of the barrel, stick your finger over the other edge of the barrel, and blow through it. And with your remaining hand, just turn the gas block, and you'll hear when it's turned right to allow the most amount of air through. It's a real fast and simple way to line up the holes too. Is just to do that. So, you get the gas block on, and you're right, Jason. Wait till you mount the barrel to do the gas block. I'm glad you brought that up. But your gas tube goes in and it's ready to go. Go ahead.
No, I was lucky because I'm waiting on my gas block.
But that's right.
But if I had not seen that or read it, I would have put it on first and then had to take it back off.
Yep. So step one, when you have a new barrel, is AR-15 barrels already come with what's called a barrel extension. It's already kind of the not only the chamber in the barrel, but it's the locking lugs, the bolt and everything, which you call the star chamber on an AR-15. It already comes pre-headspaced for you, so that's why you can do it at home. Whereas, you had a bolt-action rifle, you most likely are going to need a gunsmith to do it for you because of the headspace. So the first step would be to get the barrel and put the barrel in the upper receiver. Then slide your barrel nut down over the barrel and mount the barrel. And then do the gas regulator or the gas block, and then you install the gas tube. And then you'd be done. So when you put that barrel nut on, that barrel nut is just a collar going over that barrel extension on the barrel and screwing onto the threads of the upper. Now, I can't stop yawning. I'm sorry, everybody. That barrel nut also acts as the mount for your handguards, either as the rear spring-loaded portion, like on a standard AR-15 handguards, or as the actual surface to which the handguards are screwed into or mounted onto. So when you put the barrel on, that barrel nut is a really crucial part of the gun. It not only is what holds the barrel on and keeps it stable for accuracy, but it's also the mounting platform for the handguards. So your barrel nut, Jason, how did that process go for you?
So mine's a little bit different than the one that's on the AAC. So my Parallax handguard has holes drilled all the way around it. So they have in their instructions a set parameter of 30 to 80 foot-pounds. And it comes with a couple washers. And you basically keep tightening it until the holes have a perfect horizontal line with the gun. So when you slide the rail on, there's two screws on each side that actually hold it in place. So for me, it took me about 4 tries to make sure that the top of the rail lined up with the upper receiver, and it just all matched up perfect. And mine, with one washer, ended up being at about 50 foot-pounds.
All right, now 30 to 80 is a huge range, and the problem is, go look up on the internet what foot-pound torque you're supposed to put on a barrel nut, and you'll find everywhere between 30 and 80. Some people swear it's 50, some people swear it's 55, some give you the range. So I guess good luck on that one. I'm guilty of often in my life torquing something and then adding what I call a plus P for plenty, adding a little bit more to make it extra tight. Well, you can do that. You can actually get away with that with your barrel nut as long as you don't damage your upper receiver. And you do want the thing on there tight, but don't put Loctite on it. I think, Jason, you brought that up as an idea of what you wanted to do. And I know you want to put grease or lube or something in there to keep it from seizing. Or else you're never going to get the thing off again. That's going to be the hottest part of the gun is that chamber there, that barrel nut. It's going to seize onto that. So just, put some grease in there. I've even heard people, they like to put the barrel nut on 3 times. They'll put it on to torque, take it off. Put it on to torque, take it off, and do it the 3rd time. And they'll notice that even though it's the same torque setting, the barrel nut goes on a little bit more each time as the aluminum threads kind of stretch a little bit on that upper. Now, when you're using a torque wrench... Go ahead.
I was going to say, that is kind of the nice thing about what I was doing, because I started at 30, tightened it, slid the rail on. Oh, okay, that's not going to work. So each time I was able to bust it loose and work that process till I hit my point.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so when you're using a torque wrench, you often are going to have an attachment on it. Like a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench is going to have, a crow's foot type attachment that will grab the barrel nut. You've got to be careful. So your torque wrench settings are accurate to that 1/2-inch head. So if you want to put it to 50 foot-pounds, for example, and you then attach a crow's foot to it, you might be having a leverage problem because that crow's foot is actually a lever off of that drive. It's no longer accurate. It's no longer 50 pounds that you're putting onto the wrench, into the nut, unless you're careful. So the way you negate a torque wrench's leverage problems is you always put the torque wrench at a 90-degree angle to the extension. So if the extension is going straight off the front of the torque wrench, you're magnifying, the leverage. But if you go off at the 90-degree angle, and then if once it gets past that as it turns or the torque wrench moves, just keep resetting it and trying to keep it at 90, you actually negate the fact that your extension could be 10 inches long or 1 inch long. You're not going to have any leverage issues. So remember that. 90 degrees, that's how you get your setting. But I don't know, if you have a range of 30 to 80 feet, maybe it doesn't matter. But get the thing on, get it snug, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and it's not 90 degrees off the gun. So like in my case, I have it sitting in my bev block in my vise. So my torque wrench is pointed straight at the ground with the crow's foot slid on.
At a 90, right. So it's 90 degrees from
Correct.
The handle. So if you look at the head of the torque wrench, the handle is taking off, let's say to the 6 o'clock. You want the crow's foot to the 3 or 9 o'clock. You want it 90 degrees to the handle of the torque wrench. Now, Jason said bev block. So that's the tool that I recommended he get. Magpul makes a great little device for building and working on AR-15s. What you don't want to get, which Jason did get, and it was a good learning experience and conversation, was you do not want to get the clamshell type vise clamp, the plastic clamshell thing that holds the upper receiver for you in a vise. You do not want that. You run a serious risk of damaging your gun doing that. What happens is by holding the outside of the upper receiver, when you're putting up to 80 foot-pounds of torque on the barrel nut, is you run the risk of literally torquing and twisting the upper receiver out of shape. You don't want that. You also run the risk of the barrel nut making better contact with the barrel than it does, the upper receiver, and actually turn the barrel with the barrel nut. Now there's a little pin, a set pin in the barrel extension that goes into a groove in the upper that makes sure the barrel's top is oriented upwards. Well, if you're just torquing on it like that, you're not supporting the barrel, you run the risk of shearing that pin off as the barrel twists. It's a bad process. Do not use that clamshell. Instead, you want to use either the Geisley reaction rod or the Magpul bev block. And both of these devices, they kind of mimic an AR-15 bolt in a way. And they go into the vise, and the upper receiver is then mounted onto this, and a part of either of these tools goes into the star chamber, And so the upper receiver really isn't held at all. The entire upper is being held by the star chamber. So when you torque on the nut, you actually might even see the upper shift a little bit because it's not being held at all. Instead, you can't ever twist the barrel because the barrel is what's being held. And Jason, you noticed a complete difference in how the tools work, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing I liked about the bed block, which was really cool, is it comes with the plastic pins, so you can actually pin the upper to the bed block. And then you can actually take your bolt carrier, turn it around backwards, slide it in, and then it snaps onto the back of the bed block to secure it even that much more.
Yeah, it's a really slick design. They really thought it over. And you turn the bed block then completely upside down, and then it works to hold your lower receiver. It treats it like as a magazine, so it snaps on. So it's a really cool little tool. If you just bought that and a good barrel wrench, you're probably going to be good for everything else you need to do on your AR-15. Well, and a set of punches, but AR-15 specific, that's a really, really good tool to have and allows you to get all the torque right only to the barrel. The piece of steel versus the pieces of aluminum. So that's a good tool to use. So you torque your barrel on, you got your gas block on, you got your gas tube, and depending on your handguard manufacturer, they're all going to go on differently. But you essentially have finished your upper, right?
Everything's done except for the gas block.
And that's just because you're waiting on that to come in.
Yep.
Right, yeah. And then you can, of course, choose if you want a flash hider or a muzzle brake. I'm a big muzzle brake guy, only because when I go to the range, and nowadays a flash hider doesn't really make a difference in my world. It doesn't make my shooting experience any better. Now, if I was shooting at night, especially with a shorter barrel, and I needed to see my target, yeah, a flash hider is going to make my shooting experience better. But a muzzle brake will actually help the recoil, help keep the gun stable, help all those things. So I prefer muzzle brakes, but it looks like you went the flash hider, right?
Well, yeah, mine's more specific for the silencer that's coming.
Right, but you can often, for these companies, get either one for the mount. But
correct.
Yeah, you have a flash hider on this, so that'll be cool for you. Now, we won't get into the optics yet. I think we talk about optics for the next one, but we will tease it a little bit if you're buying parts. Jason had called me asking should he get the 2-inch offset mount or the 3-inch offset mount. I said, just get 3. It doesn't matter how it fits, you get the 3. And the reason is, one of the downfalls to an AR-15 precision rifle is the scope. You very hard not only to get the scope low enough to get a good sight picture, because you can't build up the cheek rest very well, or else your charging handle is going to hit it. And you can't get the scope low enough often because the objective lens is hitting the handguard. So there's always this balance of scope low enough on an AR-15. There's also a problem getting the scope far enough forward. I've almost always, until these offset mounts started coming out, I had to crane my head and neck back to be able to get a good sight picture, which just makes you fatigued after 5 minutes and makes you start shooting horribly. So they started coming out with these, what they call cantilever mounts or offset mounts, which is essentially the base of the mount still goes onto the upper of the gun, the upper receiver only. You don't want to be mounting the optic to the handguard. It can just move too much. But instead of going straight up and holding the scope, it then has a offset or a little diving board sticking forward where then the rings are to hold the scope. And most companies will sell a 2 or a 3-inch offset. I say always get the 3 for this reason. If you don't need the 3 inches, you can always just mount it back an inch further back on the gun, and it'll act just like it was a 2-inch. And it won't harm anything. But if you get the 2-inch, you need the more distance, so you're not going to be able to do anything with it. So just that alone, you get the 3-inch. But also, with most scopes, especially higher powered scopes, you need more eye relief. You need more distance from your eyeball to the scope. So that 3-inch comes in handy. I don't think I've ever gotten onto an AR-15 to shoot and wished the scope was further back. I've always wished it was further forward. So Jason, you got the 3-inch. He mounted it and sent me a picture, and he had it mounted back, a little bit more than an inch. And I kind of made the comment, oh, look at that. You didn't need the 3 inches after all. And we talked about, if that was really the right setting for him. And what did you do to test that setting, Jason?
Oh, it was a lesson well learned. So we were talking today, and he said, well, did you try laying down with it? And I was like, no.
Yeah, so Jason tried setting it up. He just kind of had it in the vise, and so he kind of sat behind the rifle, or almost as he was standing, with the rifle. And he said, oh, this is the perfect adjustment setting. So, okay, go ahead. And I asked if you laid behind it.
Yeah, so then I thought, no, I did not lay down with it. So tonight when I got home, before we, started the podcast, I thought, I'm going to try this. opened up the garage door, threw it on the floor, laid down, and thought, oh God, this has to go way forward.
Ah, vindication.
Vindication.
Yeah,
So yes, there was quite the adjustment forward, actually.
yeah. So some of you may be wondering then, well, how do you set up your gun? Because you're not always going to be shooting it in the prone, and you're not always going to be standing up. Well, you're going to have to decide what you're going to use the gun most for, and have it be best for that, and then just compensate when you're in the other position. For me, for this gun, for a precision varmint, rifle, he's probably going to be sitting in the prone most of the time, or laying in the prone most of the time. So I'd rather have it further forward, and then when I'm at a bench or when I'm in another position, it just may not be ideal, but it'll still work. So, yeah, the 3 inches looks like it's going to work for Jason, and I can't wait for you guys to see the gun. It's looking really cool. He made some interesting color choices, but despite that, it's pretty badass, and I can't wait to get the first groups out of it, and I hope Jason really enjoys it.
Oh, I can't wait. And then, of course, when we get into the scopes and stuff, I love the scope choice that I made. Couldn't be happier with it.
Good. So we're coming up almost on an hour here. I think it's time we can call it a night. What do you say, Jason?
Sounds good.
All right, so followed up on his AR-15 project. Talked about a few extra things. Guys, as always, I really appreciate the feedback. Help keep me motivated. Ask us questions. Give us topic ideas. It's been great so far. So, guys, I appreciate it. And Jason, I really appreciate you making time for us to do this podcast and encouraging me to do it. So, I appreciate it.
Oh, and it's been just a great experience and a fun hobby all at the same time.
Now you're going to get a precision AR. You're going to get the most budget AR you can build. And you listeners are going to get a free AR-15. So you kind of can't beat that. You get free knowledge and a free gun. So I hope that doesn't discourage you from sharing the news about this podcast, because you don't want to have more people competing for the gun. So I hope it doesn't backfire. Please spread the word. Jason and I get the best encouragement to keep this going when we see the numbers increase, on listenership out there. So we really appreciate it. If you haven't had a chance to check out the book, please do so. And until next time, guys, take care.
Take care, guys.